Hello, my friend. Hello. Welcome back to the Mindset Check podcast. I'm your host, Mesha McKittrick. This is a podcast where you believe that as you take time for a mindset check, you have more power than you think you do. And where we also believe that you can use the art of distraction to your great benefit. We're going to jump into that today. Before we do, I want to remind you of what we're up to in season 3. This season, we're talking about our internal state and everything that has to do with creating that state and being able to do so that we can check into a life of joy and expansion. I'm sharing on a heart level, talking about frequencies, vibrations, thoughts, and emotions that you can check into to help propel you forward in creating your life. We have educational and motivational mindset checks. We have guest episodes, and we have the Hey Mish episodes. Don't forget that if you have a question, please reach out, and a question, a quandary, a comment, anything, reach out and say, Hey Mish, and I would love to answer your questions on the episodes. We have all of these different types of episodes because they're designed to encourage and uplift and alter the course of your life toward living in a beautiful state, really showing you once again that you have more power than you think you do in every single episode. All right, without further ado, I want to jump into today's episode, which is really just a reminder of how to use distraction to your benefit. Let's dive in. If you've ever seen the movie Up, you'll remember the part where these dogs get distracted by squirrels. It is so funny. So essentially what happens is their master invents these collars that can interpret what a dog is barking, like how that they're actually talking. And so as the movie viewer, you get to hear the dog's thoughts, and the dog will be like intently in conversation with another dog or a human. And then all of a sudden we'll go, squirrel, squirrel. And it's just so funny because you know that's how a dog is. A dog can be so involved in something and then distracted just like that. It's so funny. Or, like if you've ever heard of the ooh shiny syndrome, I don't know really where that comes from. If you do, send me a DM and remind me where this comes from. But this concept of like, ooh, shiny, right? Like something shiny distracts you. And it's really funny when you use that term to describe, oh, someone just majorly got distracted. But a lot of times, distraction was actually such an incredible tool for me to use as a parent of young kids. Like when I was raising my toddlers, they forget so quickly and they can be so focused on something. And instead of sitting and reasoning with them, right? Like, oh, you can't have that, or we can't think about, whatever it is. I don't even have a great example for you. We can't go out to the pool right now or whatever it is. You just all of a sudden go, oh my word, look at this red ball. And they just so quickly turn their attention. And it is one of the most beautiful tools that you can learn to use as a parent, right? The art of distraction. I also think of distraction when I think about a child getting their tooth pulled out. Have you ever seen people tie a string around the tooth and then also a string around like a rocket or a motorcycle or whatever it is, right? And then all of a sudden the idea that something fast moving and then all of a sudden their tooth is gone and it surprises them. Like they don't feel it. They don't feel the pain. One time I was having an IUD removed and the doctor said, okay, I want you just to cough for me for a minute. And I was like, and I started to cough and they just pulled the IUD out and I didn't even feel it. It was really amazing. Or I don't know if you have ever been sitting in a dentist's chair when they start to shake your cheek as he gives you a shot to numb your mouth. And it is one of the most beautiful things, right? Because he's distracting you from something that would otherwise be uncomfortable or painful or, fill in the blank, whatever that is for you. It's not fun for, I don't think, anyone. But it's interesting to think about how we might be able to master distraction in our life, right? How we can actually use it not to manage the toddler brain, but how we can manage the adult brain or the adult heart for that matter. And this is a funny contrast because sometimes we think, we're actually struggling because we're so distracted in life and there are so many distractions around us that are pulling this way and that and that type of a thing. This is a different type of distraction. I love the whole conversation, and we just barely did a podcast episode about it called Teaching Your Brain to Finish Hard Things, right? The idea that distraction keeps us from achieving our goals, right? Like the quote from Joel Osteen that says, stay focused, ignore the distractions, and you will accomplish your goals much faster. Well, that's an interesting approach to our life, right? Because we need to teach our brain to be focused at times when it serves us. But we're talking about a different type of distraction. And so it's really good to kind of get an idea of what we're not talking about, right? So we're not talking about that kind of distraction that pulls us away from getting our goals accomplished. We're actually talking about a type of distraction that helps us get closer to our goals. And distraction is really anything that you do to temporarily take your attention away from something else. But what about when it's actually good for us, right? We're not talking about the kind of distraction that pulls us away from our goals or, the accomplishment, the getting of the, getting something done. We're not talking about distraction and using distraction as an avoidance, right? Like numbing. Avoiding, things helps us stay in this weird cycle of continuing to face our emotions and our problems because we're never actually handling them or dealing with them. That's not the kind of distraction that we're talking about. The kind of distraction that we're talking about allows us to actually shift into a different vibration so that we can more easily see the solution, okay? It's the whole idea that you cannot solve the problem in the same vibration that the problem was created. There's a quote by Einstein that says, you cannot solve a problem at the same level of mind or thinking that was used to create the problem. And I love the quote by Hicks that says, distraction is the fastest way back into alignment. It's really more of a pattern interrupt. Okay, so let's think of it this way. If you have a scale of emotions, right? And we've talked about the scale of emotions before, and you have this high level emotions, this are peace, joy, happiness, enlightenment, and we have the lowest of the low, fear, anxiety, stress, overwhelm, you name it, you can start to name those. And if you're hanging out in something really low, it's actually really hard to see something high. And so what we actually want is something that will help us solve the ick or the yuck that we're in. But when we don't shift into feeling something good and we sit in the problem and we turn it over and over and over and over, it can be like when you went to look for that item that you couldn't see, but it was right in front of your face. Has that ever happened to you? Just barely, I asked one of my kids to, get something out of the pantry. And I described it and I said what color the can was and all of that business. And it was so funny. This has happened to me. I've been on the other end of this because I walked right into exactly where I said it was and I pulled it off the shelf. And it's that moment of shock. Like I was just like looking there. Why couldn't I see that? Right? How many times has that happened to you? Hopefully it's happened enough that, you start to use words like, hey, for whatever reason, I'm not seeing it. Please come and prove me wrong. Please come and find this for me because I'm not seeing it. And that's a great point to helping and bringing other people in to help us see something differently, right? But in that same vein or that same idea, if we can then shift to a different feeling, if we can shift to something that's a higher vibration, all of a sudden, we've either solved the problem by being just in a different vibration, already solved the problem, or we can see the solution to the problem that we have. So whatever it is that you're up against, if you keep staying in the yuck, you cannot find the solution. You have to Sometimes take a day off work and go do something that you really enjoy doing. Sometimes you have to, to be able to solve the problem that's at work. Sometimes if you are in an argument with another person, instead of continually just like butting heads, you have to just say, hey, let's just go to a movie that we can like shift the vibration of. Something we can check into that's different. And then maybe when we can get to a feeling that's different, we can actually find the solution to the problem. We're interrupting the pattern. We're giving ourselves a different perspective to look towards what we're handling, what we're going through. And another thing that I love about distraction is that it actually gives you a different perspective to be able to let go of what you're hanging on so, tight-fistedly to. So many times we are hanging on to the hate or the disappointment or the struggle or whatever it is because we know we're right. It's like that feeling like, you just know damn well and you do not want to move out of it. For whatever reason, you just can't. Because if you move out of it, you also have to let go of being right about it or whatever gratification you're getting from being there. And so a lot of times when we're in that kind of a predicament, we sometimes think we only have two options, and that is to stay in it or to let go of it. And that's not true. If we simply go do something different and we decide that we can feel better and we distract ourselves, we're no longer holding on to the gratification. And if we're no longer holding on to the gratification, then guess what we get to do? We see it differently, and we see the cost also that, being in that feeling is costing us. And then we're able to decide from a better mind, from a better way of thinking, from a better vibration, what we actually want to do about that. It's one of the best tricks that we can ever try to remember. That if you're ever struggling in a problem, having a bad day, whatever it is that you're up against that feels hard and that feels like a struggle, what really is true is that you're out of alignment in some area. And it might be for a good reason, and that's okay. But go do something else. Get yourself feeling better. Get yourself in a better way of thinking, and then be able to approach the problem. Right? Remember, don't do it as a form of distraction, like to avoid. Do it as a form of distraction to feel different so that then you can have more sound footing in your approach and in the ability to have clarity to be able to find a way that you can navigate through the hard thing that's really, really in front of you. So I'm going to give you one more image, okay? I want you to imagine that if you know how you get on a scale and it gives you a reading of what you weigh, okay? And I'm not trying to bring up a bad feeling or a good one or whatever about that. I'm just trying to say, what if you could get on a scale and it could tell you your vibration? What if it could tell you, oh, hey, how does it feel inside of you? And you could be very aware because the reading is right in front of you. There's no way around it. And it actually doesn't take as much work as you might think, like it would to be losing all of the weight or anything. That's not the parallel. That's not the reason for the parallel. The reason for the parallel is that it's black and white and it's right in front of you. Because sometimes we try to justify how we're feeling, like, oh yeah, I'm doing okay. When what we really need is just checking into really good feelings to just say, yeah, you know what, I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. So especially when you're up against something difficult, pay attention to what is happening internally and how you feel. As black and white as it would be if you stood on a scale and you got a reading of where you're hanging out and you go, you know what? I'm not going to find a solution here. So I'm going to go skydiving. My sister went skydiving on her lunch. That's like an inside joke for me, for real. But whatever your, whatever it is, whatever your skydiving at lunch is, go do it. Go do that. And then, when you've altered the vibration, you have a different level of mind to be able to approach whatever it is that's in front of you. And that, to me, is the most powerful way that we can use the art of distraction. And I hope that you can see by using that tactic in your life that you have more power than you think you do. All right, my friend, I hope you had a very beautiful takeaway or reminder from this episode. And if you did, don't forget to share the episode with someone. Also, I want to remind you to reach out and submit a Hey Mish. I love hearing from you. And I would love to answer any question or quandary or anything that you have around the topics that we talk about on the podcast. Really anything to do with keeping our internal state, which is actually quite a broad topic. But remember, the way that we keep our state really does create our life. If we're having a beautiful experience internally, chances are we're having a beautiful experience externally. And that's our goal. Before we go, I want to remind you that one of the greatest tactics we can use is the art of distraction to benefit our living. I hope that you experiment with that a little bit. I hope that now that it's at the forefront of your mind, that you find something this week that you'll be able to just say, oh my word, I just want to push pause and go feel good for a minute, so that then I'll be able to come at this from a different point of view. I hope that serves you. Until next time, my friend.